Um, I've actually lived a pretty interesting life and feel totally blessed. And it all started here in Seattle. But I've done a fair amount of public speaking. Not all the time. When I first joined Microsoft, that's when I really started having to talk at a lot of industry shows. There's one in Las Vegas. Some of you probably have been there. It's called Comdex. Huge, huge show. I think it's maybe the second largest, show in the world. I think a consumer electronics show is the only one that's bigger. And I can remember getting up on the stage because I had to deliver some keynote thing, and I was one of the last kind of speakers to come up to the podium, and it was in a big hall, packed crowd. The air conditioning was off. There's Las Vegas, right? And so everyone is just sweating, it's really hot, people are antsy, and I get up to the podium, it's my turn to speak, and those were the days when I used to actually wear ties, and they had these little microphones, they're called lavaliers, and so they had a lavalier, and I'm kind of trying to figure out how to attach it to my tie, and finally I get to the point where I kind of mumbled something, I'm not sure where to begin. And some kind soul from the back of the audience yells out, "How about in conclusion?" I'll never make that mistake. Well, my parents, I should speak a little bit about my roots here. My parents really kind of grew up here in Seattle. They were interned during World War II in Minidoka in Idaho, and they got married in camp. They got married with $50 to their name, and when the war ended, they actually returned to Seattle, and I grew up literally less than a mile away from here on the corner of 14th and Yesler, the St. George Apartments. Okay? There were 6 of us, right? My parents, my grandmother, and then 3 kids. We lived in a 3-room apartment, a kitchen, a living room, 1 bedroom. We didn't even have our own bathroom, right? You had to walk down the hall to a shared bathroom. So we really kind of had an interesting beginning. I didn't notice any difference. I mean, I was a kid. I was having fun. I've only attended public schools, so K through 18, it's always been public schools. I've always worked. I can't remember not ever working. From the age of 5, we used to sit around the kitchen table and we used to tie fishing tackle for, 5 cents a piece, something like that. And then, from the age of about 11, I picked berries in the summer. Many of you here probably went to the same farms I picked berries at, the Nishimura farm down in Auburn and the Kova farm, in the east. We used to pick strawberries and raspberries and, green beans, stuff like that. That was hard work. And believe me, I was a lousy berry picker, so I didn't make any money. I washed cars. Who knows the Pink Elephant car wash? I washed cars there. I delivered mail for the U.S. Postal Service. They're going out of business, but I taught drums. So I'm kind of a musician. I used to be. But from the very early age, I think maybe I was from 13 or 14 years old, I actually taught drums to the Shriners, so to adults. And it was really great because they used to always give me beer and stuff like that. And then I kind of enrolled at the University of Washington and wasn't a very good student. And so I didn't technically flunk out, but I almost flunked out. And it was during the Vietnam War, and I had a low lottery number, so I got picked, and they said, "Here's your report for your physical, you're going over to Nam." And I said, "No, I'm not going over to Nam." And I had a friend of mine who was actually stationed at the Air Force Academy and said, "Scott, you play the saxophone, why don't you come down and audition for the band, because if you get accepted, it's a guaranteed 4-year tour. You'll never have to go over to Vietnam." I said, "Okay." So I climbed on a plane, went and auditioned, played the saxophone. They said, "Wow, you passed the audition." I said, "That's great, I'm very happy." So that's the good news. The bad news is we don't have any openings. I said, "Well, what do you have openings for?" And they said, "Oh, well, we have some drummer openings." I said, "Wow, I'm also a drummer." And they said, "Wow, as long as you're here, you may as well do that audition." And so sure enough, I passed out that audition as well. And they said, you know, you want to be here 4 years, just sign on the dotted line, and that's what I did. So I was stationed at the Air Force Academy. Finished school, started working. We can go to the next slide. Did a few things. But then I met this guy. To this day, I still don't know why Bill hired me. Now, prior to Microsoft, I worked for Hewlett-Packard, right? You know, pretty big computer company. I worked for HP for about, 4 or 5 years. Left HP, met a couple of guys at a party. They're smart guys, you know, Boston Consulting Group guys. 3 of them, they had Harvard MBAs, 2 of them had Harvard JDs, but they knew nothing about computers. And that's the kind of company they wanted to start. And I said, well, I know a little bit about computers. Yeah, you know. And he says, well, why don't you join us? And so I was smart enough to say, okay, yeah, I will. So we spent about a month writing a business plan, raising VC money. We were based in Silicon Valley. You know, raised, about $4 million. Started hiring people. In about 2 years, we ran the company right into the ground. And so I was out on the streets, right, doing some consulting. And that's when I heard about Microsoft. Wrote Bill a letter saying that, you know, I think I can do some things for you. And for whatever reason, he invited me up for some interviews. And, you know, they actually offered me a job. And I was smart enough to accept. It actually got me back here. I did some pretty interesting things at Microsoft, things that I really had no business doing. One of the first things is I founded the international division for Microsoft. Now, I only speak English. Okay? I had never traveled internationally before. I had just run a software company into the ground. But I wrote a business plan. I said, Bill, I need $1 million. I'll start the international division for you. And for whatever reason, he said, okay, go do it. And so I did. In 4 years, that international division accounted for 42% of revenues and over half the profits for the company. You know, Bill said, okay, you've done some good things. Fix the U.S. division, because the U.S. division was bleeding ink. I mean, they were losing money, hands over fist. He gave me a nice promotion, gave me some more stock, said, okay, I'll do this for you. And in about 3 years, we turned that division around, and we were making a whole lot of profit and doing some really good things. Next slide. Well, I retired from Microsoft exactly 10 years to the day. And it was at a time when I had gotten married, we started having kids, and I could literally no longer work the 90 to 100-hour weeks that was demanded at the time. I can remember having a conversation with Bill very early on. I was telling him, Bill, you know, I've worked really hard. I just can't do it anymore. He said, what do you mean you've worked really hard? Well, come on, you know, my first 3 years here with the company, I worked 3 years without taking a single day off. Not a single day off. And Bill said, so what? Yeah, I said, so what? I worked for 7 years without taking a day off. So he kind of put it in perspective for me. But nevertheless, you know, I really enjoyed the time at Microsoft, but I had to retire. I wanted to spend time with the family, and to do this. I had picked up the game of golf. I had become addicted to the game of golf. So I literally, for the first 6 weeks of retirement, I would go to the golf course every single day and pound thousands of golf balls every single day. And after 6 weeks, I wasn't getting any better. So it dawned on me that I'd better find something else to do. And it was literally that afternoon that I sat myself under a tree and figured out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And it was at that time that I crafted my own mission, my personal mission statement, which is to marry my passion for things entrepreneurial with things philanthropic in ways that encourage others to do the same. And ever since then, for the last 20 years, that's what my life has been all about. I spend 99% of my time as a nonprofit volunteer. We can go to the next slide. So I have served on over 100 nonprofit boards in the last 20 years. I have personally founded or co-founded 20 nonprofits. And, I guess maybe once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. But interestingly, one of the first things I did in retirement was to start a for-profit company. Now, Lori and I, as she was, again, giving birth to our second kid, and we were in the hospital room, and I was trying to be the helpful husband. I realized that's an oxymoron. But I really was trying to be the helpful husband, and Lori was complaining that she hadn't gotten around to really getting any baby blankets made. I said, oh, I can solve that for you. I'll just go and buy some. I said, Scott, you don't understand. You can't buy these baby blankets. I said, come on, there are millions of babies born every day. There's got to be plenty of baby blankets out there. And she described the baby blankets she wanted. I said, okay, I'll go out and I'll find them for you. I went out, looked around, visited all the maternity shops, visited all the little retail baby shops, visited Nordstrom. I went all over. I couldn't find these baby blankets. But a part of me said, oh, here's a business opportunity, right? Ever the entrepreneur. And so I said, I went back and I said, you know what we got to do, Lori? We have to start a baby blanket business. And she said, she looked at me, she said, are you nuts? You just retired. Why do you want to start a baby blanket business? And I said, okay. So I literally sat back down in the corner, picked up a magazine, I was thumbing through this People magazine, thumbing through it, and there was this article on Paul Newman. So everyone knows Paul Newman's Own, right? It's a line of products that you can buy in the grocery store. Well, the article was, Paul Newman does that. 100% of the profits are donated to charity. And I said, wow, that is a really cool idea. I said, Lori, why don't we do this baby blanket idea and donate 100% of the profits to charity? And finally she broke down and I got my way. So, okay, you want to do it, you go ahead and do it. And so the Nanny and Webster baby blanket business was born literally in the maternity ward. This is one of the blankets. And what makes it unique is it's 2-ply cotton flannel, really high quality. It's big enough to actually fit in a crib, so you can use it as a sheet, not only as a blanket. Honestly, it lasts forever. I still use mine. I still do. This is true. You can ask Lori. I go to bed with 3 of them. They are so soft and so comfortable. Anyways, we sell them direct. We don't sell them at retail, right? We sell them to companies. Companies give them as employee gifts. So any employee that has a newborn, companies like Microsoft orders 4,000 of these baby blankets a year. Right? We sell them for $30. 100% of the profits we donate to charity. And so ever since we started this thing, I think we've given away about a couple $1 million, to various children's charities. One of the other first nonprofit things that Lori and I were involved in was something called the Children's Circle of Care. And this is kind of social networking the old way. We were approached by the late Mary Gates, Bill Gates' mother, who was very involved with Seattle Children's Hospital. And she and Doug Pica, the executive director, came to us one afternoon and said, Scott and Lori, we'd like you to donate $1 million to Children's Hospital. Well, back in those days, believe me, $1 million was a lot of money. That's when Microsoft stock was, it hadn't split umpteen times and it was still pretty low. So